Hello and welcome to the Game Dev London podcast, a community of amazing people who love talking about and sharing their love of the details behind making games, whether or not they're actually based in London. I'm your host, Oscar Clark, he, him pronouns, and I'm on a quest to understand everything you wanted to know about game dev, but never dared to ask. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Mark from Gaslight Games, and Mark and I are going to have a chat about what it's like to kick off starting a project. Mark, I'm going to bring you on screen now, he says, remembering to press the right buttons, he says. Hopefully they'll kick that in post. There we go, Mark. Lovely to see you. Mark, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, so I'm a game developer, mostly a programmer based up in Yorkshire. I've been in the industry for 10, 12 years, something like that, and I've worked across everything from my own projects, one-man band, through to indies, AAA. I've done VR, console, mobile. I've even done stuff on 30-foot giant screens, and the lovely fun that an interactive game with a camera works on that. So
yeah, that sounds amazing. We'll have to get into that one later. So I thought, our conversation earlier, we thought it would be good to start talking about what it takes to get started in a project. And there's a lot of things. Now, when I tend to get involved, it's normally when things have gone wrong and people ask me to sort of come in and give them some advice about how to save it. And sometimes you can, but most of the time you can't. And it'd be so much better if you could start off in the right way. How do you think about getting started?
Well, I think more recently, I think the biggest thing right now is that everybody is, or a large number of people are going remote. I think the pandemic has kicked that off, and it's definitely shown that that is something to be looked at. But we made the jump on that in 2016. Yes.
I've been remote for 10 years. Sorry.
Exactly. I think that's definitely a large part, and it's certainly demonstrated a lot that there are many more things that one needs to do and shift how we're thinking about making games if you go in a lot more remote. There is something to be said about being in an office and bouncing ideas off around people and body language and things, but
and human contact. I mean, there's a nourishing part to human contact. We mustn't forget that.
Absolutely. But like the biggest thing for kicking off the project for me, I mean, I'm mostly technically based. So unfortunately for me, my other half is a producer, project manager. So
that sounds like a good combination. You're used to told what to do.
So I think the first thing that I would want to sort of say on this side of things is that it's about building up your structure. About how you're going to run the project. So best practices, one of the big ones for me is code formatting, format rules, that kind of stuff. And it's not so much about strict, I think we should code in this way, although I do have lots of opinions on that. But it's about standardizing. It's a standard language.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I'd go slightly earlier. So for me, I think teams need to work out what it is, why they're doing the things and how they're going to measure success. To me, that's the very first thing to do. In fact, when we do consulting kind of work, and it's always this same chart. In fact, I was doing yesterday, I was doing a session for Yuki with some Russian developers. And my first exercise is basically, here are lots of reasons you might choose to make a game. Not the game, not the genre, but they might be connected to the genre. So you might have a passion for a genre. That's okay. You might have a desire to make money. That's okay. You might have a desire to win awards. But for my mind, it's like getting the team to agree the core things that drive success that are not around a single game. Because I think that when you've got an industry where something like 1 in 20 game ideas just fail, if we just hang our hats on one idea and not think about what success looks like as a team, I think we kind of flounder very quickly. I mean, do you have any views on that?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a large part. So a lot of the teams that I've worked with, they have a big technical debt, and that's certainly where I come in and I help a lot of factors. Yes. But I've mentioned already about production and things, and they have this very large idea of what they want, but they don't have the core, or they'll know what that end product is. They want what they want that to look like. They know how, everything is going to be this super shiny particles. Oh my God, it's going to be amazing. And it's like, cool, baby steps. And I am certainly guilty of this myself. but it's about those baby steps. And like, sorry, I've mentioned like code formatting and things, but
Yeah.
a big part for.
But I love those things. To me, that's
Mm.
process, that's framework. But I kind of want people to agree the things that they're going to use to make decisions first, personally. That's why I think if I know that you want to be the market leader in a particular subgenre and you're going to measure that by the ranking of each game as being in the top X of that subgenre, fantastic. Then we've got not a pillar, but a direction which can drive vision of the company. So when we come to decide this game, okay, what about this game is going to make it possible so that that will then be in the top 10 of that subgenre? And then in order to deliver that, we need these other bits. We need this structural agreement. Like, this is what a spec looks like. This is what code formatting we're going to use. This is the way we're going to write a variable. Are we going to use lowercase first letter, uppercase second letter? Second word type thing. Sort of things. I mean, is that how we're going to make it so it's clear when someone reads this code that they know what they're doing, or when they read the notes, or when they're going to enter variables in live ops? All of that stuff needs to be there, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have other stuff. So there's like the folder structure of what you're going to do, and that certainly plays. Like, I don't know how many people have been bitten, but Android has a thing of lowercase everything. It doesn't like uppercase. Now, lots of tools, Unity, Unreal, they can auto do those. But if you have set yourself some structure on that, you can minimize what that impact's going to be. And similarly, like naming convention, we use a prefix for everything. So a lot of that stuff, again, when we've come on with other people, they've kind of gone, oh, it's like, why? Certainly a lot of this stuff that I mentioned now, these big things, they kind of just look at them as an annoyance or a frustration. And it's like, no, I've been on stuff. Might be able to see it in the background, but Guitar Hero, when I joined that, it had been going for about 4 years, and the rules were still in place and so strict because 4 years on, we minimize what broke, and that's such a big thing.
So what we're saying here is we're trying to lay out what it's going to take to make it so you don't waste money later.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's the bit that will bite people. Yeah.
So I mean, like I said, we've talked about a number of those things. So I mean, so do you start with a game in mind, or do you start with a team in mind, or do you start with a player in mind when you start out, or are you simply looking at where is the money to make this thing? How do you think about getting started?
So if it's one of our projects at Gaslight, then we try and think about what would we want to make, and also like what would we want to play. But there is that obvious problem of once you start building something, are you still going to want to play it? And of all the games I've ever worked on, including my own, and I am so very proud of literally every project I've ever worked on. Some of them I don't ever want to think about again. Oh God! But I'm so proud of them. But there's literally only ever been 2 that I've actually wanted to play.
It's really tough as a designer or a coder, not just because we have to play it endlessly to make sure it's right, but because it's a bit like looking at your any piece of art that you might have done. I'm a terrible artist. I cannot draw. My sketches of people are basically scrappy triangles that could have been done by a spider walking through ink. But it's that emotional pain of looking at those things. You go, oh, that wasn't what I wanted. And when I see that with games that I've worked on, it's like, oh, but it could have been this, it could have been that. And I think everybody suffers from imposter syndrome. Everyone suffers from that kind of sense of self-deprecation. At least everyone I've met who's actually worked hard at it.
Yeah, I think it comes from a passion. The biggest thing that we always say with our stuff is that we give a hoot. And like I've just finished up sort of the stuff my side of a game called Smash Punks, and it's not garnering as much momentum as we'd have liked. It's a big online multiplayer game, so it needs a community. But of all of the tools that we've put into it, I've got it working with online physics, melee, replication, crashing, bashing. It just does things that no one else has ever done. I mean, a lot of it was definitely smashing myself in the face with the keyboard until I got an answer. And so that passion, that caring, we want it to succeed and to and that's the same. I feel that when we start a project as well, I get that the new and shiny, which is always a big risk because you don't want to get stuck on it.
Yeah, and I think this is part of the tension as well, because we have this knowledge that at the end of the day, we have no control over how the player will receive it. The only control we have over that, and this is the approach that we take, is to basically test as early as possible. So for me, when I'm starting out a project, that's why I have these goals that I have tests associated with. But I also then use that to work out who it is I'm going to target from. So, to be honest, actually, what often happens is I have an idea for a game and then I retrofit the audience and the measures to it, and I shouldn't do that. That's the wrong thing. Don't be me. Don't be Oscar. Do what Oscar says. Don't do what Oscar does. If you work out what your goals are as a studio, and you work out what individual ones, not just what are the most important things that the whole team agree with,